Hey, Liron here. If you're struggling with portrait painting, I want to share with you what I think is the biggest mistake that destroys watercolor portraits. If you're scared of portrait painting, if you're frustrated with your results, this is your chance to make it fun again. So we'll get started with something simple. Here's an example for a face. Now, relatively simple light, black and white. Here's where most people get caught. They are trying to paint the things they're seeing. Instead, it's much more useful to paint the overall pattern of light and shadow, and you can greatly simplify it even if you don't know how to draw well. So I'm going to show it to you. I don't care so much about is it a nose, is it mouth, whatever, and check it out. Super sloppy drawing. This is going to be the nose. Here's another shadow on the lower lip, and we go from there. That's going to be the shadow on the face. We have the background. So I'm going to indicate its shape where it's going to be dark. Okay, so did my best here. Let's see what happens when we simply paint it all as one shape. So I'm painting just the shape of the shadow. It goes in here. I missed that detail. And then it goes back out. We're going to make portrait painting fun and easy again. Okay, most importantly, it's gonna be fun. So here I have the shadow around the nose. It connects to this little right detail we drew, and then the lips, so the upper lip, and then the lower lip. Now look, do you have to be a Van Gogh or a Leonardo da Vinci to paint this way? Not really. If you want to, by the way, keep this light, go ahead. I'll just darken around it. So let's say I do want to keep this light area. I'm just using tons of paint. It's really, really saturated. But what we're doing right now is bonus steps. It's not necessary. It really is not necessary. Lips are dark. Then it connects to this kind of a shadow here. And we will leave this area lighter. So you could get some more nuance. Is it important? Do you have to do it this way? Not really. Now to really make it pop, let's paint the background. So here's the shape of the background, right? And I'm going to show you how this applies to many different light and shadow patterns. We're going to analyze this as easily as you can imagine. It's going to be super fun, super simple. So something like this. We've got ourselves a portrait, right? There's the eye, of course, you can kind of indicate that's fine, but you see it's a portrait, right? If I would take my time, make a more accurate drawing, and work the exact same way, you will see a difference in the result. You will see something that's much more polished, okay? So just letting you know, this is the baby step that a lot of people are missing. They're thinking like, how can I get the nose to look good and the eye? You know what they end up with? They end up with this kind of a thing, right? The nose, like, okay, this is the shape of the nose. If they are even shape oriented, and then we have the nostril, there's a shadow behind it. It's a mess. If they pay attention to shapes, they will fill in the shapes. If they're not going to do that. You don't need any of that. You can connect it all together and look at the overall pattern. Let's do one more. Okay, we've taken our time with this. So here we have another beautiful example. I'm going to keep this simple. I could put a little more effort into the drawing. You don't have to. Let's see what we can get away with here. So we have a shadow here casting. Now the shadow is visiting the eye and it's going back around. And then you'll notice it becomes a bit of a harder transition thanks to the nose. And then it goes soft again. And it kind of connects with the outline of the face almost. Okay, so we have something simple to work with. Now, check it out. Where the nose is, we have that shadow casting, right? That's a nice little effect. It casts downwards. And then it goes like this. And then we have the nostril here. If you want to make it really obvious, you can go ahead and kind of crosshatch or draw these shapes, make them lighter or darker. But that's pretty much all we need on that front. And then it connects to the eye, right? So we do have an eye here. That's one thing you can think about. Just maybe draw it very lightly. We're not going to get into too many of the details here, okay? The eyebrow pops a bit from that shadow. And we have the lips. Now the lips, again, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to place them, but let me show you a little trick. Go down from the nose towards this direction, just at a slightly diagonal line, drop a lip, another lip. We're going to keep this not only simple, but kind of rough looking, okay? I don't want this to become a drawing lesson. You don't have to. Now, check it out. If you do want to add some more interest to it, there are some soft edges, as we've seen. We can indicate those. How would we do that? The easiest way I know is to pre-wet. So if I just do this, I take some clean, relatively clean water with my brush. I just drop it down here. I do the same for this looser shadow, and I do the same for this looser shadow. And we're gonna get some nice smooth transitions. By the way, here too, this is a smooth transition, okay? Something like this is all we need to get started. Now, what I do like about this one, we'll see a better example of it, is the shadow does start kind of warm. That's something that often happens, and it's a beautiful effect. We can try capturing it. So, shadow, and then notice it dips in. I'm doing this with one swipe, and then another swipe for this section. And we could maintain that warmth around here. Now, while this is still wet, and you can see this is still wet, right? Again, I'm looking at this as one big shape. You don't have to concern yourself with the details here. One big shape. So I'm just mixing up, again, my carbazole violet, my quinacridone burnt orange, and I'm just basically repeating the shape, but I'm not touching the edge because I want to preserve that feeling of more warmth around the edge. This is a background, right? You can go ahead and darken that. You can go even darker. But the thing is, you'll notice when you do this, slowly but surely a face is going to emerge, right? It can take a couple of moments, that's fine. But a face will eventually emerge, and it's going to look really, really good. So how does the face emerge? One way is just by starting to add the details. So check it out. Look at what's going to happen now. I'm going to paint that cast shadow on the nose, and you will see how can take a moment. Let me switch to the smaller brush here. It could take a moment, but then something just clicks and the understanding develops. Oh, this is actually a face I'm looking at. And I'm gonna loosen up that edge too, because why not? It does seem a little looser. Again, what we're doing here is a little more advanced. You don't have to go this advanced. And then, of course, if you are advanced, it'll look maybe simple, but I mean like if you're a total beginner. So that's a nose, right? And you can tell it's a nose. Now, let's connect to this shadow. We have a very strong, kind of thick line for the eyelashes. And then we do see a bit of the eyebrow here. And we have this kind of a rounded shadow. And you know what? I'm just going to keep this one simple. Here's the iris and the whatever eyelids, all the details. Let's smoothen that out a bit. There's a shadow under the lashes line and all of that. And if you really want, you can indicate that line. I kind of missed it, but it's also not that important. We could go darker and then we'll be able to better indicate it. Though I want to keep this relatively light. But if we do decide to kind of darken the iris a bit, you get a bit more room to work on that. Right? There you go. And like if you really want to start just hinting, right? These little details, they're going to work perfectly because our shapes are solid, right? The overall thing is there, the details are there. And then the mouth, you know what? Let's make it a little more red. Why not? The mouth is quite dark, so I'm going to use a strong dark paint, but keeping the shape simple. And here's the cool part that you'll notice. I do make a separation between the lips themselves, which, you know what? I kind of want to make them pop a little more with the red. I'm going to make a separation between the lips themselves and the shadow they cast, their shape cast. So check it out. There's a shadow here. It's quite dark. And I'm going to make it separate from the lips. So this is one. In this corner, it's two. And of course, there's the middle there. We're going to have to kind of let it sit, let it dry a bit to get the perfect timing. But check it out, without any of that, you get a portrait, right? You get a nice looking portrait too, I would say. We went quite strong on the lips. Honestly, you could lighten it up if you want to just match it with the rest. I'm showing you like how I fix inaccuracies in real time. You can even introduce a bit of water just to bring it down a touch. You don't have to, but I'm like, okay, let's see if we can even optimize this a little more. Check it out. Looks really good. Let's let this one dry. We're gonna look at some of these again later just to see how they dried, how they ended up. Now, before we move on, you should know that this video is sponsored by my own course, the frustration-free watercolor course. If you want to learn how to paint loose watercolors, link in the description box. Okay, so this is a little more complex, but again, let's look at a pattern. So what pattern? What's the simplest pattern we're seeing here? Just for the face, so check it out. If this is the hairline, somewhere around here, this is the forehead. From the forehead, I'm going to move right, and then we have that shadow on the nose. Look at how dumb of a drawing I'm making here. Okay, you don't have to be good at this. And then the nose casts this lovely diagonal shadow on the face. Okay, so this is the shadow. Again, we're making portrait painting fun again. And then we have this other shadow. Now, all of this is a shadow. All of this left area could be treated as a shadow, but if you want to kind of add more nuances, you can. Now, when you look at my sketch, you're like, what is that? If you're gonna make your own sketch, trust me, it's gonna be much clearer to you because you're the person who made the sketch. But in any case, here's the chin. Shadow goes here. Let's map it out just for fun. So the entirety of the shadow is something like this. But within that shadow, we do have stronger and weaker shadows. One of the stronger shadows is this, right? The nose casting this strong shadow, and this side of the face, and this side coming from the lips. It's going to be a little stronger. On the other side, we just have that eye that we could treat almost as a shape here, as a shadow, and the eyebrow. And we've got ourselves the pattern of the face. Is it going to be accurate? We'll see, right? Is it going to be detailed? Probably not. But let's get started with the overall shadow, the entirety of the shadow. I'm going to use kind of a pinkish feeling color. So let's actually dilute the yellow out of here. Keep more of that red. But it's, of course, it's all nuances. So here is the overall shadow in its entirety. I'm going to even include the white of the eye here. I'm not going to even separate that. Shadow by the nose. This is, look at this, big brush, right? Big brush. Very light on the details, right? Doesn't even matter. There are some highlights on the lips too, which I could have captured, but that's fine. And here I would say just a touch. And I can shade the eyebrow with that same color. It doesn't matter, you see. Now, we can do this while it's still wet. Maybe I'll even add a bit of blue to neutralize. And check it out. I'm going to simply indicate those stronger shadows within. So we have the eyebrow. We have that strong shadow on the nose. Feels a little detached. Let me add more red to that. I don't want it to look really, really detached. Let's warm it up a bit. Taking that blue into the mix was a bit of an unnecessary thing. And then we have this round shadow, right? And then we have this big shadow on the left. Now again, the goal isn't accuracy here. What we're trying to see is, can we capture the big shapes? And out of context, this can even look quite funny, but once it all falls into context, you will get it, right? So we have this shadow on the eye here. This entire thing just blends into the hair. So, you know, you could indicate the hair a bit, right? So something like this. Now, if you want to increase some of the saturation in some spots, actually, I think it would be a cool effect. I'm grabbing just a clean red, kind of adding it in here and there, where the shadows change direction. The lips are obviously a little more vibrant, but can you see how the pattern was captured, right? This is almost diving into abstract. And my goal here is simply to remind you that this can be fun, and very often it is if you're just, check it out, just a little nostril there. Of course, this is not paper white, right? Of course, if I were to be accurate, I'd paint it with maybe, say, a very warm light color, right? But we're not after that here. I'm looking at the patterns of light and shadow. You could spend like 10 minutes just on this eye if you want to. But we don't need it here because we're thinking in terms of shapes, right? You could add this nice little kind of warm shadow here to the bottom of the nose just to maybe shape it a little. And then you could add a bit more of a dark shadow to the upper lip. That looks quite cool. So you just go like this, you see, you make that separation. And then you have the separation of the shadow that is cast by that lower lip, right? So I could go get it a little darker. But you see, with more details, a pattern does emerge, right? Can you tell? I can wrap up the entire face with the background, and it will start making a little more sense. So there's the hair here. I don't even care what color I'm using right now. And then there's, again, the beautiful, beautiful kind of curly, wavy hair. And this is the other side of the face, right? So as soon as we wrap that in, right, it gives some meaning to the highlights, which of course, this isn't just one paper white flat shape, of course not. But it does give it some meaning. You see, we can even play around with the more abstract ideas here, but like, look at this. It looks so good and it's fun, right? Then if you really want to dive in, I have examples of more detailed, more careful portraits. You could go with those, right? But even in my courses, but you don't have to do it this way. Let's look at another. Okay, this is a cool one, because this is a little misleading, right? What we have here is a beautiful reflected light kind of effect. So I'm going to keep this, again, fairly abstract, but we basically have, and it's a tough angle to draw, but that's fine. We have the chin, so that's kind of a rounded shape at this angle. It's the under the chin, then we have the chin itself right here. And then from here, we're going to drop down a line for the neck. Again, I'm not going to be accurate. I don't bother. I often trace my portraits. Drawing a portrait accurately is, to me, very often it feels like a waste of time unless I'm practicing being accurate. If I'm not, I don't really care. Now here we have a really nice blue reflected light. So let's actually focus just on that area. It's going to be fun. So let me show you how I think about these things. So we have this lovely skin tone starting around here. And I'm gonna go with like a neutral kind of brownish color. Now look at what's going on as we reach down into, and of course this is connected to the rest of the face, right? So you can imagine it's a connection, but look at what's going on here. If you really want to be more with the details you're seeing, I see a bit of red reflected from somewhere. I'm not even sure where, because we're not seeing the overall image, but check it out. We have this lovely blue, and the blue is just a touch. It's a touch lighter than the shadowy side of the other side of the face. It really is a touch lighter. It's not that significant, but let's indicate this blue, and check it out. Already colors, beauty, right? It looks so good. Forget about the fact that we have the lips here. We can add this beautiful red to them. Just think abstract, right? Don't even think like accurate shapes. Think, okay, I see lips, I'm going to place lips. It's going to be relatively abstract, okay, like this. We do get a bit of a neutral color around this area, so the blue is a little neutralized. And check it out, as we get down here, we're going to go darker, right, under the chin. So I can just, and you don't have to really exaggerate it, so I can just kind of go with this nice little neutral brown, and I see a bit of that red reflected. It's from her clothes probably. So let's red it up with a bit of red here. And you see, within all of this process, it's quite simplified, and of course I'm not even capturing that many details because I'm really focused on one area, but within this entire process, I have still been thinking about this entire shadowy area as one shape, you see? All throughout this thing, it was one shape. And I think that's really the power of making portraits fun is, first, can you think of them as just a shape? And then you can start introducing all the bells and whistles and really take your time and focus on a small area like we've done here. We've focused on a very small specific area here. And it was great fun. So check it out. If you do want to start framing it as the lighter section, once you introduce the hair, right, you see how it frames it up. And it makes, I can keep the hair a little lighter here because I went lighter to begin with. But you see it starts to frame it up as not the darkest darks. And that's a cool effect too. And then whatever you do with the rest of it is up to you. But like, I really love this example. Again, see the nose. We can just think abstract. Again, so I'm seeing on the shape of the nose, I'm seeing a bit of blue here, right? On the side and the middle. And then I can just connect it to whatever yellowy kind of brown color I'm seeing, right? Something like this. There's even pink. There's a bunch of colors here. It's a really good one, by the way, just to practice reflected light. It's a great portrait. And then this goes here. This is a shadow to the side of the face. You keep developing it, right? Obviously, you may start with light to dark in watercolor, so you'll probably start with this lighter tone for the entire face or for parts of it, skipping the highlights, and then you'll start establishing the darker darks. But just for understanding what you're looking at, this is so useful to think in terms of big shapes. Okay, now we're gonna look at one last example, just for fun, because I wanna show you something really cool. You don't even have to paint a natural shadow on the face. So we have these beautiful blinds, and I'm just gonna go for it and we'll show you. So check it out. There's just the shape of the blinds on the face. We have this one and another one, and they follow the shape of the face, right? They kind of follow the roundedness of the face. And you can think in terms of these shapes, you're gonna be fine. It's gonna work, right? And then on the left side, we have some beautiful red reflected light. I'm thinking abstractly, so maybe this side, and then it goes here around the face. And as it gets closer, it actually cools off a bit. So let's add a bit of coolness to it. And then it casts a shadow from the nose, like so. And it's also a bit engulfed in a shadow here around the nose. There's this area for the eye, and then it goes around like this. I do see a bit of warmth on the nose itself, so we can almost include it like this. See, a bit of warmth. There's obviously more warmth on the lips. This would be another wonderful one just to practice the nuance of shapes on the face, you see. And then this goes here. We have the other eye that we can also keep in that same, so this goes down here, this connects to here, and then we have the other eyebrow, you see, and then it leads us to the other eye, and you can darken this inside part right here. And of course, we have the eye here, right, and this is all in the shadow, so this is another eye, and then the hair, right, but you see, you don't even have to paint organic shapes on the face. You can cast whatever object you want. Now, if you really want to dive in, you can cast whatever shadow by whatever subject you want. Now, if you want to just choose an area and go ahead, okay, let's dive in on this one and get it more accurately. So notice, just because we're here already, you see there's this violety, almost blue feeling to it under the shadows under the neck. And then what happens where the shadow turns into light? If you've seen a lot of these, you can guess by now. What happens is, it goes with a really warm kind of nice skin tone, almost like a mid skin tone. You see this beautiful effect. This is how I painted Thomas Shelby, Cillian Murphy's portrait. Same kind of a process. You see it's a beautiful transition, and you can soften it up if you want, right? And of course it would look best once we let it dry and put in the lighter skin tone that matches the... So for example, I'll show you here. Once you're done, you can, once it dries, add the lights afterwards. That's the cool part. So you see, if I just fill it in with the light shapes like so, and it will still it will begin to make sense. If I add these around, maybe this area is a little more light, this area on the forehead's a little more light. Here we have a bit of a highlight, but you see how it fills in the blanks. So look, the biggest mistake people make with portrait painting is thinking very tightly in terms of what part of the face am I painting, and being so obsessed about that, when you could, if you want to, you could treat this as big shapes that are abstract and express whatever you want with them. Start simple, just one or two big shapes of shadows. I have a couple of videos on YouTube there. I'm gonna maybe link them somewhere here. And then gradually you work up your way to the more complex light and shadow patterns. And how long did it take us to just paint one of these? Maybe 5 minutes for each one. So you can get a lot of brush time in very easily, and you don't have to spend an hour or two painting something obsessively and getting the details all wrong. That's the key part here. You're getting the most educational value for the shortest amount of time. And then when you see a face, a picture, a friend, a family member that really captures you, you just really want to paint them, you take all of that experience, you don't have to do anything differently, but you just take all of that experience and lose the audio of the video because your mic was on low battery. Basically, you take all of that experience you built from painting, all of these exercises, you get in tons of experience in a very short amount of time doing a complete painting that isn't a complete painting, but it teaches you all the insights you need instead of spending hours on a process, and you get this beautiful, lovely result. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn how to finally let go and paint those loose watercolors you've been dreaming of, be sure to check out the frustration-free watercolor course, link in the description box below. I created it tailor-made for this main issue that I've been seeing with all of my students. Everyone comments here on YouTube. It's just the biggest issue. And if you're running into that, into overworking, not knowing what details to paint and obsessing over them and painting too many of the details, I know this. I've been there. I built this course just for you. Check it out. I'm going to put a link below. I also want to thank everyone who supports me over on Patreon. If you want to receive credits at the end of the videos, be sure to check that out. You'll also receive access to a couple of exclusive painting processes I haven't shared anywhere else, as well as a nice recent behind the scenes video and more content coming in the future. I'm going to put that link as well in the description box. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next vid. Take care.